In a bustling city where ambition ruled every corner, there lived a quiet girl named Maya. She was unassuming, soft-spoken, reserved, and often overlooked by her peers. Her classmates dismissed her as someone who wouldn't amount to much, assuming she lacked confidence or drive. What they didn't know was that Maya had grown up learning how to observe rather than react. Her father, Arjun Malik, was once one of the most feared names in business, a man whose reputation for shrewdness and ruthless efficiency had earned him both respect and enemies. But after his sudden retirement years ago, he disappeared from public life, leaving behind only whispers of his legacy. Maya seemed like an ordinary teenager with no connection to that world, but appearances can be deceiving. Maya's family lived in a modest apartment on the outskirts of the city. Despite their humble surroundings, Maya never felt deprived. Her father had taught her the value of simplicity and humility. He often said, "True strength doesn't come from what you own. It comes from who you are." These words stayed with her, shaping her perspective on life. However, this philosophy also made her stand out, or rather fade into the background, at school. While other students flaunted designer clothes and expensive gadgets, Maya wore simple outfits and carried a plain backpack. To her classmates, she looked like someone who didn't belong in their elite social circles. When Maya turned 16, her parents decided to enroll her in St. Regis Academy, one of the most prestigious boarding schools in the country. The decision came after weeks of deliberation. Her mother believed it would give Maya access to better opportunities while her father remained hesitant. "Are you sure about this?" he asked one evening, his voice tinged with concern. "That place is full of people who think money makes them superior. They won't understand you." Maya nodded firmly. "I want to try, Dad. I'll be okay." Reluctantly, Arjun agreed, but not before pulling her aside for a private conversation. "Listen carefully," he said, his tone serious, yet gentle. "You're stronger than you realize. Don't let anyone make you feel small. And if anyone ever crosses the line—" He paused, letting the implication hang in the air. "Let me know. I'll take care of it." Maya promised she would, though. Deep down, she hoped it wouldn't come to that. She wanted to handle her problems on her own, just like her father had taught her. Little did she know her resolve would soon be put to the test. St. Regis Academy was everything Maya expected, and more. The sprawling campus boasted state-of-the-art facilities, lush gardens, and towering buildings that exuded elegance. Students walked around in perfectly tailored uniforms, chatting animatedly about internships, extracurriculars, and weekend plans. It was clear that everyone here had big dreams, and bigger egos. On her first day, Maya felt out of place, clutching her schedule tightly as she navigated the unfamiliar hallways. It didn't take long for her to attract attention, not the kind she wanted. A group of popular students, led by a strikingly beautiful girl named Aisha, quickly noticed the newcomer. Aisha was the undisputed queen bee of the school, known for her charm, wit, and sharp tongue. She ruled the social hierarchy with an iron fist, surrounded by loyal followers who hung on to her every word. When she spotted Maya sitting alone during lunch, curiosity got the better of her. "Who's that?" Aisha asked her friends, pointing at Maya. "That's the new girl," replied Priya, one of her closest allies. "Her name's Maya. She's supposed to be some scholarship student." Aisha raised an eyebrow. "Scholarship? Interesting." She smirked. "Let's see how long she lasts." From that moment on, Maya became a target. At first, the bullying was subtle. Snide comments about her clothes, mocking laughter when she answered questions in class, and whispered insults behind her back. Maya tried to ignore it, focusing instead on her studies and extracurricular activities. She joined the debate club, excelling in competitions despite her nerves. She volunteered at the library, finding solace among the shelves of books. But, no matter how hard she worked or how well she performed, the ridicule followed her like a shadow. One day during gym class, things escalated. Maya was paired with Aisha for a team activity. As they lined up to play volleyball, Aisha sneered at her. "Don't mess this up for us, scholarship girl," she hissed under her breath. When Maya missed a serve later in the game, Aisha erupted. "See? This is why we don't let people like you into our school." She shouted loud enough for everyone to hear. The entire class burst into laughter, leaving Maya red-faced and humiliated. That night, back in her dorm room, Maya sat on her bed staring at the wall. Tears streamed down her cheeks as she replayed the incident over and over in her mind. She felt angry, not just at Aisha, but at herself for letting the taunts get to her. Why couldn't she stand up for herself? Why did she always choose silence over confrontation? For the first time since arriving at St. Regis, Maya questioned whether she truly belonged there. Her thoughts drifted to her father. Though he rarely spoke about his past, Maya knew he had faced challenges far greater than hers. People had underestimated him too, only to learn the hard way not to cross him. She wondered what advice he would give her now. Would he tell her to fight back? Or would he remind her to stay calm and patient? Unable to resist any longer, Maya reached for her phone and dialed her father's number. It rang twice before he picked up. "Hello?" His deep voice brought instant comfort. "Dad," Maya began, her voice trembling. I need to talk to you." Arjun sensed her distress immediately. "What happened, Beta?" She hesitated, unsure how to explain. Finally, she blurted out the whole story. The bullying, the loneliness, the constant feeling of being invisible. By the time she finished, tears were streaming down her face again. There was a long pause on the other end of the line. Then, in a calm but firm voice, Arjun asked, "Do you want me to handle this?" Maya froze. Handle it? What did that even mean? She imagined her father storming into the school, confronting Aisha and her friends, and making a scene. The thought terrified her. Yet at the same time, part of her desperately wanted anyone to step in and make it stop. I don't know," she stammered. "It's your call," Arjun said gently. "But remember this. You're not helpless. You're my daughter, and no one gets to treat you like you're nothing." His words struck a chord deep within Maya. For so long she had tried to blend in, to avoid drawing attention to herself, but maybe it was time to stop hiding. Maybe it was time to show them who she really was. Taking a deep breath, Maya whispered, "Yes, Dad. Please. Help me." On the other end of the line, Arjun smiled faintly. "All right, Beta. Leave it to me." Little did Maya know those two words would set off a chain reaction that would change everything. For her, for Aisha, and for everyone at St. Regis Academy. The next morning, Maya woke up with a strange mix of emotions swirling inside her. She felt a flicker of hope knowing that her father was now aware of her struggles. But she also couldn't shake the fear of what might happen next. Would he really intervene? And if he did, how would it affect her life at St. Regis? These questions lingered in her mind as she got ready for school. For the first time in weeks, though, she walked to class with a tiny spark of confidence. Her father's words echoed in her head. "You're not helpless, you're my daughter." Unbeknownst to Maya, Arjun Malik had already started moving his pieces into place. While Maya sat through her morning classes trying to focus on geometry and history, Arjun was making calls. He reached out to trusted contacts, people who owed him favors or respected his reputation enough to act quickly. By lunchtime, a team of private investigators had been discreetly deployed near St. Regis Academy. Their mission was simple yet precise: gather evidence of the bullying Maya endured without drawing attention to themselves. Meanwhile, Aisha and her clique continued their campaign against Maya, oblivious to the storm brewing behind the scenes. During recess, they cornered her near the cafeteria, snickering about her cheap clothes and mocking her accent. One of them even knocked her books out of her hands, scattering them across the floor. Maya bit her lip, refusing to cry or retaliate. Instead, she bent down silently to pick up her belongings, all while cameras hidden in nearby trees captured every moment. By the end of the day, something subtle but noticeable began to shift. Teachers seemed unusually tense, glancing nervously at their phones during lessons. Even Aisha appeared distracted, whispering urgently to her friends between classes. No one could pinpoint why, but there was an undercurrent of unease rippling through the school. Rumors started spreading like wildfire. Something big was happening, though no one knew exactly what. That evening, when Maya returned to her dorm room, she found her phone buzzing with messages from her father. "Check your email," he wrote, simply. Confused, Maya opened her laptop and logged into her account. There, waiting for her, was an email from Arjun. Attached were several video clips showing Aisha and her group targeting Maya over the past few weeks. Some footage came from security cameras around campus. Others were recorded by undercover operatives posing as janitors or delivery personnel. Every cruel laugh, every taunt, every act of sabotage was documented in crystal clear detail. Maya stared at the screen, her heart pounding. She had never seen such undeniable proof of the torment she'd endured. It was overwhelming and empowering. For months, she had doubted herself, wondering if she was overreacting or imagining things. But here was concrete evidence that she wasn't alone in this fight. Her father hadn't just listened to her story. He had taken action to validate it. But that was only the beginning. The real shock came the following morning when the entire school received an unexpected announcement. Over the intercom, Principal Carter's voice crackled through the halls. "Attention, students and staff. Due to recent developments, we will be holding an emergency assembly in the auditorium immediately. Attendance is mandatory." Whispers erupted among the students as they filed into the auditorium. Aisha and her friends exchanged nervous glances, their usual bravado faltering. When everyone was seated, Principal Carter stepped onto the stage, flanked by two stern-looking men in suits. The atmosphere grew tense as he cleared his throat and began speaking. "As some of you may know, our school has recently come under scrutiny regarding incidents of harassment and bullying," he said, his tone grave. "These allegations are deeply concerning and cannot be ignored. After thorough investigation, we have uncovered substantial evidence implicating certain individuals in these acts. Appropriate measures will be taken to address this issue, starting today." Gasps filled the room as the principal gestured to the men beside him. They handed him a folder which he opened and scanned briefly before continuing. "Effective immediately, Aisha Patel, Priya Sharma, and 3 other students named in the report are suspended pending further review. Additionally, disciplinary actions will be considered for any faculty members found negligent in addressing these matters." Aisha shot up from her seat, her face pale with shock. "What? This can't be happening," she exclaimed, her voice trembling. "It's all lies. Someone set me up." Her protest fell on deaf ears as the suited men escorted her and her friends out of the auditorium. The rest of the student body sat in stunned silence, processing what had just unfolded. Maya, sitting quietly in the back row, felt a strange mix of relief and guilt. Relief because justice was finally being served, but guilt because she hadn't imagined it would escalate so dramatically. Word spread like wildfire after the assembly. Students whispered about the mysterious forces behind the investigation. Who had gathered the evidence? How had they managed to expose Aisha and her group so thoroughly? Speculation ran rampant until someone connected the dots. Arjun Malik's name surfaced almost instantly. Whispers turned into murmurs, then into outright gossip. Everyone knew who he was, or at least, they knew of him. The stories of his ruthless business tactics and unparalleled influence were legendary. Now it seemed he had turned his sights toward St. Regis Academy. For Aisha and her family, the fallout was catastrophic. That same afternoon, Aisha's father, a prominent real estate developer, received a call informing him that several key projects had been put on hold due to unexpected complications. His company's financial backers suddenly backed out, citing concerns about ethical practices. Similar misfortunes befell the families of the other suspended students. Lawyers faced disbarment threats, entrepreneurs saw contracts vanish overnight, and reputations crumbled under the weight of scrutiny. It was as if an invisible hand had dismantled their lives piece by piece. Back at school, Maya became the center of attention, not because of anything she had done, but because of who her father was. Classmates who once mocked her now fawned over her. desperate to earn her favor. Teachers treated her with deference, offering praise and leniency where none existed before. Even strangers approached her in the hallways, eager to strike up conversations or offer compliments. To them, Maya was no longer just another student. She was untouchable. But Maya didn't feel triumphant. Instead, she felt conflicted. Part of her relished the justice served, the knowledge that Aisha and her group would face consequences for their actions. Yet another part of her mourned the loss of innocence. She hadn't asked for revenge. She'd merely wanted peace. Now, surrounded by fear and flattery, she questioned whether this outcome was worth the cost. One evening, sitting alone in her dorm room, Maya reflected on everything that had happened. She thought about Aisha's tear-streaked face as she was led out of the auditorium. She thought about the teachers scrambling to distance themselves from blame. Most of all, she thought about her father's words. "No one gets to treat you like you're nothing." Was this what he meant? Or had she misunderstood? Her thoughts were interrupted by a knock on the door. Opening it, she found Principal Carter standing outside, looking unusually sheepish. "May I come in?" he asked hesitantly. Surprised, Maya nodded and stepped aside. Once inside, the principal took a deep breath before speaking. "Ms. Malik, I owe you an apology," he said. "We failed you. Our system failed you. And for that, I am truly sorry." Maya blinked, caught off guard. "Thank you," she replied softly. "But what happens now?" Principal Carter sighed. "Well, we're implementing new anti-bullying policies, mandatory workshops, stricter reporting procedures, the works. Hopefully this will prevent something like this from ever happening again." Maya nodded slowly, digesting his words. As much as she appreciated the effort, she knew policy changes wouldn't fix everything. Real change required more than rules. It required understanding, empathy, and courage, and that was something she would have to work toward herself. As the principal left, Maya gazed out the window at the fading sunset. The sky was painted in hues of orange and pink, signaling the end of one chapter and the beginning of another. She realized that while her father's intervention had brought justice, it was up to her to shape the future. With newfound determination, she resolved to use her position, not to instill fear, but to foster kindness and respect. Because true strength, she reminded herself, wasn't about domination. It was about making a difference. The days following the emergency assembly at St. Regis Academy were unlike anything the school had ever experienced. Whispers of Arjun Malik's involvement dominated every conversation, among students, teachers, and even parents. For many, it was both awe-inspiring and terrifying to realize just how far his influence extended. No one dared to speak ill of Maya anymore, not even in hushed tones. Instead, they tiptoed around her, treating her like royalty, or avoiding her altogether. The once unstoppable Aisha Patel was now a cautionary tale, a reminder of what could happen when you cross someone with power. But behind closed doors, chaos reigned supreme. Aisha's family scrambled to salvage their crumbling empire. Her father, Mr. Patel, spent sleepless nights on the phone, pleading with former allies and business partners to reconsider pulling out of deals. "This isn't fair," he shouted during one particularly heated call. "We've done nothing wrong." Yet despite his protests, contracts continued to dissolve, lawsuits piled up, and investors fled like rats abandoning a sinking ship. It became clear that whatever invisible force had targeted them wasn't going to stop until they were completely ruined. Meanwhile, Priya Sharma's mother, a high-profile corporate lawyer, found herself under intense scrutiny. Anonymous tips led to investigations into her past cases, uncovering questionable practices that she thought were long buried. Clients began dropping her firm left and right, fearing association with scandal. Even her closest colleagues distanced themselves, unwilling to risk being tainted by her tarnished reputation. For Maya, watching all this unfold felt surreal. She hadn't anticipated such widespread consequences when she called her father for help. In her mind, she simply wanted the bullying to stop, to feel safe again without having to endure constant humiliation. But now, seeing families torn apart and lives shattered, she couldn't ignore the weight of responsibility resting on her shoulders. Was this justice, or was it vengeance disguised as fairness? Her conflicting emotions came to a head one evening during dinner in the school cafeteria. As usual, Maya sat alone, picking at her food while pretending not to notice the stares directed her way. Suddenly, a boy named Rohan approached her table. He was a quiet, unassuming student who rarely interacted with anyone, let alone Maya. Today, however, he seemed determined. "Can I sit here?" he asked hesitantly, gesturing to the empty seat across from her. Maya nodded, surprised but curious. "Sure." Rohan slid into the chair, fidgeting nervously before speaking. I just wanted to say thank you," he said softly, his voice barely audible over the hum of nearby conversations. "You probably don't remember me, but last semester, I got bullied too, by Aisha and her group. They made my life hell for months, and now, well, because of you, they're gone." Maya blinked, taken aback. Until that moment, she hadn't considered how her situation might have affected others. Sure, she knew Aisha's behavior impacted more than just her, but hearing it directly from someone else hit differently. "I'm glad things are better, for you," she replied sincerely, though guilt still lingered in her chest. "But I didn't do much. My dad handled everything." Rohan shook his head firmly. "That doesn't matter. What matters is that you stood up. You didn't stay silent. That takes courage." His words struck a chord deep within Maya. Courage. Was that what she had shown? Or had she simply passed the burden onto her father, letting him fight battles she should have faced herself? She thanked Rohan for his kind words and watched him walk away, feeling a strange mix of pride and shame. Later that night, Maya decided to call her father. She needed clarity, not just about what had happened, but about what would come next. When Arjun answered, his tone was calm yet curious. "Beta, is everything okay?" "I don't know, Dad," Maya admitted, her voice trembling slightly. Is this really what you meant when you said no one gets to treat me like I'm nothing? Did you mean destroying people's lives?" There was a pause on the other end of the line. Then Arjun sighed deeply. "Maya, listen carefully. What I did wasn't about revenge. It was about protecting you and teaching those who hurt you a lesson they won't forget. Sometimes fear is the only language certain people understand. But does that make it right?" Maya pressed, tears welling up in her eyes. "Aisha's family is falling apart. Priya's mom might lose her career. Is that fair punishment for bullying?" Arjun hesitated before responding. "Life isn't always fair, Beta, but neither are bullies. What they did to you wasn't just teasing or harmless jokes, it was systematic cruelty designed to break you. If we let them get away with it, they'd do it again to someone else. This had to stop." Maya fell silent, absorbing his explanation. Intellectually, she understood his reasoning. Emotionally, however, she struggled to reconcile the idea of justice with the devastation she witnessed. Finally, she whispered, "What happens now?" "That depends on you," Arjun replied gently. "You have a choice, Maya. You can use this moment to rebuild, not just your life, but the environment around you. Show them that kindness and strength aren't opposites. Or you can let fear rule the school forever. The decision is yours." Hanging up the phone, Maya felt a renewed sense of purpose. Her father was right. The future wasn't set in stone. While she couldn't undo the damage already done, she could shape what came next. Slowly but surely, she began formulating a plan. Over the next few weeks, Maya took small but meaningful steps toward change. She started attending faculty meetings, volunteering to help draft new anti-bullying policies. At first, teachers were hesitant to involve her, unsure whether she was seeking revenge or genuinely trying to improve the system. But Maya's sincerity won them over. She shared personal anecdotes about her experiences, emphasizing the importance of creating a supportive community where everyone felt valued. Outside of official channels, Maya also reached out to fellow students. She organized informal gatherings in the library, inviting anyone interested in discussing ways to foster inclusivity and empathy. To her surprise, turnout exceeded expectations. Students from different cliques, some of whom had previously ignored or mocked her, showed up eager to contribute ideas. Together, they brainstormed initiatives like peer mentoring programs, mental health awareness campaigns, and anonymous reporting systems for incidents of harassment. One of the most impactful projects Maya spearheaded was a storytelling event called Voices Unheard. Modeled after open mic nights, it provided a platform for students to share their struggles, whether related to bullying, academic pressure, or personal challenges, without judgment. On the night of the event, the auditorium was packed. Speakers poured their hearts out, recount of the frustration of feeling invisible, the pain of rejection, and the hope of finding acceptance. Many listeners cried openly, moved by the raw honesty on display. Among the speakers was Rohan, the boy who had thanked Maya earlier. Standing nervously at the podium, he recounted his own battle against bullying and credited Maya with inspiring him to speak up. Sometimes standing up doesn't mean fighting back, he concluded. It means refusing to stay silent. And for that, I owe Maya Malik everything. As applause erupted throughout the room, Maya felt a warmth spread through her chest. For the first time since arriving at St. Regis, she truly belonged, not because of her father's reputation, but because of the connections she had forged and the positive impact she was making. The shadow of fear still lingered, but it was slowly being replaced by something brighter: trust, understanding, and mutual respect. Still, Maya knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy. Change took time, effort, and patience. There would undoubtedly be setbacks along the way, but armed with her father's wisdom and her own determination, she was ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. Because true strength, she realized, wasn't about wielding power, it was about using it wisely to lift others up. And so, as the sun set on another day at St. Regis Academy, Maya looked toward the horizon with newfound resolve. The storm may have passed, but its aftermath presented an opportunity, a chance to rebuild not just walls but hearts. The transformation at St. Regis Academy was gradual but undeniable. Maya's efforts to foster kindness and inclusivity had planted seeds that were now beginning to sprout. Students who once walked through the halls with heads held high only to mock others began softening their edges. Teachers, inspired by Maya's dedication, started incorporating lessons on empathy and emotional intelligence into their curriculums. Even Principal Carter, whose initial apology seemed perfunctory, became an active advocate for change, regularly checking in with Maya to ensure her initiatives received proper support. Yet, despite these positive shifts, not everyone was ready to embrace the new atmosphere. Some students clung stubbornly to old habits, whispering snide remarks behind closed doors or rolling their eyes during anti-bullying workshops. Others resented Maya, viewing her as a symbol of disruption, a reminder of how drastically their lives had changed since Aisha's downfall. Among them was Karan Mehta, a senior known for his sharp wit and even sharper tongue. Once part of Aisha's inner circle, Karan had managed to escape suspension by staying under the radar during the investigation. Now he harbored quiet bitterness toward Maya, blaming her for dismantling the social order he thrived in. Karan wasn't alone in his resentment. Several parents, furious over the fallout from Arjun Malik's intervention, banded together to challenge the school's new policies. They accused St. Regis of prioritizing political correctness over academic excellence, claiming that stricter rules stifled free expression. Their complaints reached the ears of influential alumni, sparking heated debates about whether the institution was losing its identity. For a brief moment, it seemed like the progress Maya worked so hard to achieve might unravel. But Maya refused to back down. She understood that resistance was inevitable. After all, change rarely came without pushback. What mattered most was perseverance. With unwavering determination, she continued championing her cause, finding creative ways to engage skeptics and win them over. One afternoon, while brainstorming ideas with her growing team of student volunteers, Maya proposed something bold, a school-wide campaign called Step Into My Shoes. The concept was simple yet powerful. Over the course of a week, students would be paired randomly and tasked with learning about each other's lives, attending classes together, sharing meals, and discussing personal challenges. The goal was to break down barriers by fostering genuine understanding. At the end of the week, participants would present reflections on what they learned, highlighting moments of connection and growth. When Maya pitched the idea to Principal Carter, he hesitated. "It's ambitious," he admitted. "What if it backfires? What if tensions rise instead of easing?" Maya smiled confidently. "That's a risk we have to take. If we want real change, we can't keep doing things the same way. We need to step outside our comfort zones." Reluctantly, the principal agreed, authorizing the campaign to proceed. Flyers went up around campus advertising, "Step into my shoes," accompanied by posters featuring quotes like, "Empathy begins where judgment ends." Initial reactions were mixed. Some students embraced the initiative enthusiastically, eager to meet peers they'd never interacted with before. Others grumbled, dismissing it as another pointless exercise designed to make them feel guilty. Among the reluctant participants was Karan himself. When the random pairings were announced, he groaned audibly upon discovering he'd been matched with Neha Kapoor, a shy freshman who rarely spoke in class. To Karan, the assignment felt like punishment, a forced bonding session with someone he considered irrelevant. Still, unwilling to draw negative attention, he begrudgingly showed up at Neha's locker on the first day of the campaign. "Hey," he muttered awkwardly. "Guess we're stuck together this week." Neha looked startled, but nodded politely. "Okay." Over the next few days, Karan shadowed Neha through her routine, sitting beside her in class, eating lunch with her, and even accompanying her to art club meetings. At first, their interactions were stilted, filled with uncomfortable silences and superficial small talk. But slowly, cracks began to form in Karan's defensive exterior. He noticed how diligently Neha worked, sketching intricate designs in her notebook during breaks. He observed how she lit up when talking about her passion for photography, her shyness melting away as she described capturing moments of beauty in everyday life. And he couldn't help but admire her resilience, especially when she casually mentioned working part-time jobs to help support her single mother. By the end of the week, Karan found himself genuinely liking Neha, not because she was impressive or popular, but because she was kind, hardworking, and authentic. During their final presentation, he surprised everyone by speaking candidly about what he'd learned. "Before this campaign, I didn't think much about people like Neha," he admitted, his voice steady despite the weight of his words. "I assumed I knew everything about everyone based on labels, rich, poor, smart, lazy, whatever. But spending time with her made me realize how wrong I was. She's got dreams bigger than mine, struggles tougher than mine, and yet she handles everything with grace. Honestly, I feel lucky to have met her." The audience erupted into applause, many nodding in agreement. Maya watched from the back of the room, her heart swelling with pride. This was exactly why she had pushed for the campaign, to show people that beneath surface-level differences lay shared humanity. Empathy wasn't just a buzzword, it was a bridge capable of connecting even the most unlikely pairs. As weeks turned into months, the ripple effects of Maya's initiatives spread beyond St. Regis Academy. Local media outlets picked up stories about the school's innovative approach to combating bullying, praising its emphasis on empathy and community building. Parents who initially opposed the changes softened their stance, acknowledging the tangible improvements in their children's behavior and attitudes. Alumni who had criticized the shift expressed interest in supporting similar programs at other institutions. Even within Maya's own family, her actions sparked meaningful conversations. Her younger brother, Rohit, often asked her questions about leadership and activism, eager to follow in her footsteps. "Do you think one person can really make a difference?" he wondered aloud one evening during dinner. Maya smiled thoughtfully. "Absolutely. But here's the thing. It's not about doing everything yourself. It's about inspiring others to join you. Together we can create something bigger than any one of us. Her father, listening quietly from across the table, nodded approvingly. You've grown so much, Beta, he said softly. I'm proud of the woman you're becoming. Despite the praise and recognition, Maya remained grounded. She knew that true change required ongoing effort, not fleeting victories. There would always be setbacks, misunderstandings, and moments of doubt. But armed with the lessons she'd learned and the support of those around her, she felt equipped to face whatever challenges lay ahead. One crisp autumn morning, as Maya walked through the school gates, she paused to take in the scene around her. Gone were the cliques huddled in corners whispering secrets and casting judgmental glances. Instead, groups of students mingled freely, laughing and chatting without pretense. Posters promoting kindness still adorned the walls, though they, no longer felt like mere decorations. They were reminders of a collective commitment to betterment. A familiar voice interrupted her thoughts. Hey, Maya. Turning, she saw Priya Sharma approaching, looking nervous but determined. Once Aisha's closest ally, Priya had kept a low profile since the fallout, avoiding both blame and camaraderie. Now, however, she stood before Maya, holding out a folded piece of paper. I wrote this for you, Priya stammered, her cheeks flushing red. It's not much, but I wanted to say thank you for everything you've done. Curious, Maya unfolded the note. Inside was a heartfelt message expressing gratitude for the opportunities Maya had created, along with a promise to pay it forward by mentoring younger students. Tears welled up in Maya's eyes as she looked at Priya, seeing not an enemy, but a potential ally. You don't have to thank me, Maya replied gently. We're all in this together, right? Priya nodded, smiling tentatively. As she walked away, Maya tucked the note into her pocket, cherishing it as proof that redemption was possible, even for those who had once caused harm. Later that day, Maya sat in her favorite spot by the library window, gazing out at the vibrant colors of fall leaves swirling in the breeze. She thought about how far she'd come since her arrival at St. Regis, how she'd transformed from a quiet, invisible girl into someone capable of inspiring change. Yet, none of it would have been possible without the challenges she faced or the people who supported her along the way. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of gold and crimson, Maya whispered a silent vow to herself. No matter where life took her next, she would continue striving to leave the world a little brighter than she found it. Because in the end, strength wasn't measured by power or fear. It was defined by the love and compassion we shared with others. Months passed, and St. Regis Academy transformed into a place unrecognizable from what it once was. The toxic environment Maya had entered as a timid outsider was now replaced by one of mutual respect and understanding. Yet beneath the surface, Maya carried a quiet burden, a lingering sense that her journey wasn't over yet. While she had succeeded in reshaping the school's culture, she couldn't shake the feeling that something deeper still needed resolution within herself. It began during a quiet evening in her dorm room. Maya sat cross-legged on her bed, flipping through an old photo album her mother had sent her. The pages were filled with memories of her childhood, pictures of family vacations, birthday celebrations, and candid moments of laughter captured between her parents. One picture stood out, a young Maya sitting proudly beside her father at his office desk, wearing a miniature blazer he jokingly called her business attire. In the photo, she looked confident and happy, completely unaware of the complexities adulthood would bring. As she stared at the image, Maya realized how much she missed those simpler days. Back then, her father's reputation hadn't loomed large. He was simply Dad, the man who taught her how to ride a bike and cheered loudly at school plays. But somewhere along the way, Arjun Malik's legacy had overshadowed everything else, shaping not only how others saw her, but also how she viewed herself. She wondered if she could ever reclaim the girl she used to be, the one who didn't need validation from titles or fear to feel worthy. Her thoughts turned inward as she reflected on the events of the past year. Yes, justice had been served for the bullying she endured, and yes, She had made significant strides in fostering kindness at St. Regis. But at what cost? Families had been torn apart, reputations shattered, and friendships strained under the weight of fear. Even though these consequences weren't directly her doing, they weighed heavily on her conscience. Was there another way things could have unfolded, a path less destructive, yet equally effective? The next morning, Maya decided to seek answers where they mattered most, with her father. It was Saturday, and she rarely called him on weekends unless necessary, but today felt different. Picking up her phone, she dialed his number, bracing herself for the conversation ahead. "Beta," Arjun greeted warmly when he answered. "What is it?" Maya hesitated before speaking. "Dad, can we talk about what happened last year? About Aisha and everything?" There was a pause on the other end of the line. Then softly, Arjun replied, "Of course, Maya. What's on your mind?" Taking a deep breath, Maya poured out her thoughts. All the guilt, confusion, and questions she'd been carrying silently for months. She admitted feeling conflicted about the fallout, wondering whether the ends truly justified the means. And most importantly, she asked him if there was another way he could have handled the situation without causing so much collateral damage. Arjun listened patiently, letting her speak without interruption. When she finally fell silent, he sighed deeply. "Maya, I understand why you're asking this. Believe me, I've thought about it too. But let me tell you something. Life is messy. Sometimes protecting the people you love means making difficult choices, even ones that hurt others. But does power always have to come with destruction?" Maya pressed, her voice trembling slightly. "I don't want to live like that, Dad. I don't want to rule through fear." Arjun chuckled softly, though there was no humor in it. "No one should have to live like that, Beta. Not even me. That's why I stepped away from the business world, to escape the cycle of control and consequence. Do you remember what I told you growing up? True strength comes from who you are, not what you own or achieve." Maya nodded, though he couldn't see her. Those words had shaped her foundation, guiding her through countless challenges. But hearing them again now gave them new meaning. Strength wasn't about wielding influence recklessly. It was about using it wisely to uplift others while staying true to oneself. Over the next few weeks, Maya embarked on a personal mission to redefine her identity outside of her father's shadow. She continued championing kindness at St. Regis, but shifted her focus toward empowering individuals rather than imposing change. Instead of organizing large-scale campaigns, she started mentoring younger students one-on-one, helping them navigate their struggles with confidence and compassion. She encouraged them to find their voices, assuring them that they didn't need external validation to matter. One such student was Annika, a shy 8th grader who reminded Maya of herself when she first arrived at St. Regis. Annika often kept to herself, avoiding eye contact and retreating whenever approached. During their weekly meetings, Maya shared stories of her own experiences, emphasizing that vulnerability wasn't weakness, it was courage. Slowly but surely, Annika began opening up, sharing her dreams of becoming a writer and her fears of being judged. By the end of the semester, she had written a short story inspired by Maya's guidance and submitted it to a local competition. Winning 3rd place brought tears of joy to both mentor and mentee. Meanwhile, Maya worked on repairing relationships damaged by the chaos of the previous year. She reached out to Aisha's family, not out of obligation, but out of genuine concern. Over coffee, she met with Mrs. Patel, expressing regret for the pain caused and offering support in rebuilding their lives. Though initially skeptical, Mrs. Patel softened as Maya spoke sincerely, acknowledging the unintended consequences of her father's actions. They parted ways with a tentative promise to stay in touch, planting seeds of reconciliation. Perhaps the most profound shift occurred within Maya herself. As graduation approached, she found clarity about her future. Rather than pursuing prestigious careers in law or business like many of her peers, Maya chose a path rooted in service. She applied to universities with strong programs in social, work, and community development, determined to dedicate her life to creating positive change on a broader scale. On the day of her graduation ceremony, Maya stood nervously among her classmates, clutching her diploma tightly. As names were called and graduates walked across the stage, she reflected on how far she'd come since her arrival at St. Regis. From being an invisible outsider to becoming a catalyst for transformation, Maya had discovered her purpose. Not in power, wealth, or status, but in connection and empathy. When her name was announced, she stepped forward confidently, meeting Principal Carter's gaze with a warm smile. The applause that followed wasn't just polite clapping. It was heartfelt appreciation from teachers, peers, and even former adversaries, who now respected her for who she truly was. As she accepted her diploma, Maya glanced toward the audience, spotting her father seated proudly beside her mother. Their eyes met, and in that moment she knew she had made him proud. Not because of what she achieved, but because of the person she had become. In her valedictorian speech later that afternoon, Maya addressed her fellow graduates with heartfelt sincerity. "We stand here today not just as individuals, but as representatives of something greater," she began, her voice steady despite the nerves fluttering in her chest. "Each of us has faced challenges, doubts, and fears. But together, we've proven that kindness isn't weakness, it's strength. Empathy isn't optional, it's essential. And change isn't easy, but it's worth it." As she concluded her remarks, the crowd erupted into cheers, rising to their feet in admiration. Tears pricked Maya's eyes as she soaked in the moment, knowing she had left an indelible mark on St. Regis Academy and on herself. That evening, as fireworks lit up the night sky in celebration of their achievements, Maya stood quietly on the school grounds, gazing upward. For so long, she had sought validation from others, hoping to prove her worth through accolades and accomplishments. Now, standing beneath a canopy of stars, she realized the truth. Her value wasn't defined by external measures. It came from within, from the love she gave, the connections she forged, and the difference she made in the lives of others. Turning to join her friends, Maya smiled softly, feeling lighter than she had in years. The road ahead wouldn't be without challenges, but she was ready to face them, not as someone seeking approval, but as someone grounded in authenticity and purpose. Because ultimately, true strength wasn't about ruling the world. It was about leaving it better than you found it. And Maya Malik was determined to do just that.